Alrighty, so this is my presentation on my fieldwork lesson reflections. I was in an English classroom, grades 10th and 11th. So the first lesson I taught to this class was during a unit on Of Mice and Men. This was back in September. The standard we were focusing on was how to analyze complex characters. So we used a empty head graphic organizer, and the students were asked to choose either George or Lenny, the two main characters, and within their empty head they were asked to include character traits, physical and personality traits. They also were asked to include pivotal events that happened to these characters that were significant. Thoughts, feelings, these could be thoughts or feelings that were actually provided by the text, or they could be implied feelings. Also actions, so big moments that happen in the book, I wanted them to include in the empty head. So basically any information that pertained to the story about the character that that described who the character was and their significance in the story. This was actually the beginning, the first step in developing an essay, a character analysis essay. So I thought this was a great way to get the students thinking more critically about their character, especially these two characters, because they really are very complex. You have George, who's very torn between his own life and taking care of Lenny, and then Lenny, who's complex because of his mental situation. So this was a brainstorming activity. I thought it went over really well. The students seemed to really like it, and the examples what I saw, what they were including in their maps was pretty awesome. Lots of them used color. Some of them even kind of decorated their empty head as if it were the character. So they like added hair and physical features and things like that. And then the teacher ended up, Miss Mino, my master teacher, ended up putting a lot of them up around the classroom. She like had a little corner for Of Mice and Men, and she used some of the students' empty heads to post up. So I thought it was pretty successful. Most of the time my job throughout the lesson was walking around and talking with the students and making sure that what they were putting in their empty heads was quality stuff. So during the same unit, I taught another lesson, or I didn't teach this lesson per se, but I was able to facilitate day 2 of our Socratic seminar. So this was basically the last activity we did for this book. Day 1, so the day before this, I got to watch Miss Mino and see how she went about facilitating the Socratic seminar. That way I knew exactly what to do the following day. There was a long list of questions that we posted up on the board, up on the projector. So the students had a visual of the questions, and they also were asked to have prepared the questions in advance and answered all of them, so that if they were called on or asked to comment, they had everything right there in front of them to contribute to the discussion. So there were, thinking back, I think there were about 15 to 20 questions, so we got through about 7 to 8 the first day, and then the second day that I facilitated, they finished the rest of the questions. And I provided a sort of what we did here. I believe we did it more in a square position. We had quite a large class, so we had their chairs lined up in squares, but everyone could see each other. The way it was run was really smooth. Basically what Miss Mino did the first day and what I ended up doing the second is we just facilitated time management. So if someone was kind of digressing a bit on an answer, we just prompted them to move forward, or every once in a while we would maybe throw in a couple of ideas that the students could stem off of if they got stuck. But this was one of my favorites that I did, because we were just discussing the entire class about all that we've learned. We're addressing all the different aspects and activities that we discussed throughout the novel. So great way to assess. I actually used the Socratic seminars one of my alternative assessments. It's one of my favorites. It really does work well, and this was proved to me after teaching this lesson. Also, there was rules that the students abided by, and it was very democratic. Worked very well. So this was an essay revision lesson that I did. This one lasted 2 days, or two class period times, basically. So this, we worked with the history teachers to find out what historical figures or what historical time they were working on, so we could kind of tie in important historical figures into both classes, so that they would they are learning about the same things in both classes. It worked pretty well. We also threw in a couple of our own historical figures, but we tried to keep it within a certain time frame, so that they were learning about the time frame and the people in both classes. So our list was very vast. We gave students lots of freedom to choose what they wanted. We included, poets, musicians, political figures, Charlie Chaplin. We had lots of really cool historical figures on the list. And then once the student chose, they had to stick with that person. We didn't really give them much lenience to switch after they started, because we did lots of researching. We provided lots of opportunities for them and activities that they could really get to know their historical figure. So the essay, they were to compare and contrast not only the identities of these historical figures, but their significance to our world and their works of art and things like that. So after they wrote their essay, Ms. Mino and I came up with a revision section, which was this. This wasn't the exact one. It was really close to this, though. And after they finished their essays, they were to self-revise. Everyone was given a piece of paper like this, and they had to write where in their essay this was proved. So they're just checking themselves. Meaning, organization, clarity of language, and their voice. This actually did work pretty well. We had about half the period the class was quiet, and we had them do it all on their own, and then the second half of the period we allowed them to kind of speak about what they revised with a partner. But it wasn't a peer revision. The peer revision came the following day, where we also provided them with a sheet. It looked very different than the other ones, so that there was they were revising the same essay, but using different techniques to do so. So this one was a little bit more general than the self-reflection. So first they exchanged papers. Again, the first half of the class we kept it silent. Students had to really focus in on the student's paper that they were revising, and then the second half of the period we had them meet up with the author of their paper that they were revising and go over the suggestions and why they felt that they were good corrections and whatnot. And then after the editing, they were to staple it then they went back and revised it. It was nice we had a printer in the classroom, so then some of them were able to revise and print right then, and then staple both checklists to their essay and turn it in. My job during these lessons, obviously I modeled for them what I wanted them to do, and then Ms. Mino and I, for the remainder of the class, while they were correcting, we were just there for them to, if they had questions, or we would suggest suggestions for them. We wanted to make sure that this was good use of their time. We didn't want them to just give the other students, oh, great job, AAA. We wanted them to really provide good feedback. So this worked really well, I thought. This was one lesson that I pretty much had come up with all on my own. Miss Mino obviously was there to help me piece it together, but I chose one of my favorite poems. It's called Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night. We had done lots of poem analysis before this, so students, when they were able to get this poem, they were pretty quick about knowing what to look for and what to highlight and things like that. So this lesson, we wanted to analyze multiple interpretations of the poem. So we read the poem in the beginning of the class. I had them read it quietly a couple times to themselves. They were asked to mark it up and highlight where they thought necessary. Then we read the poem out loud as a class. We actually did this several times at different paces as well. Then we played the reading off YouTube, which is this here. This YouTube video was perfect because it's actually Dylan Thomas, the author of the poem itself. He's reading it, so it's really cool. You get to hear his own voice and kind of added a little drama to the poem. And then as you watch the video, you're looking at pictures of Dylan Thomas at different times in his life. So you're looking at him, you're hearing his voice, and you're reading his work at the same time. I thought it was a great way to show them multiple interpretations of it. And then we went on to, so this analysis, like I said, we had done lots of analysis before it. This one focused on literary elements that they already knew, it was like a refresher. And then we also introduced some more challenging literary devices, as this is a more challenging, this is a pretty deep poem. And the poem itself is about death. So after we read the poem, we did some discussion about different aspects, metaphors, things like that. We got into a conversation about death. And it was really cool because, no one was really afraid to share their thoughts about God or heaven or what happens next. A lot of this has to do, the poem has to do with basically fighting against death and not being afraid of it. It kind of shows different perspectives of men who face death, because ultimately we all face death. So the conversation we had at the end, we probably went a little too long, but those are moments in class that I wouldn't trade for anything. They're really cool, and that's time where I got to learn from them. So this continued on. We did lots more poem analysis after this, and then they ended up doing some activities with this poem itself, but this day was a great refresher and introduction to what was coming next. And then just to kind of tie up my lesson, I really learned a lot from my master teacher. These teaching opportunities were pretty awesome, and as you guys know, I'm actually switching placement, but I know I'm going to keep in contact with Miss Mino. She was awesome, and I learned so much from her. All right, that's it. Hope you enjoyed.